United with Christ. Meet local churches with open doors, serving throughout the Border Valley community, and sharing the truth and hope of God's love and salvation. A presentation by KSE Channel 38 Christian Television. And now, United with Christ.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to United with Christ. My name is Jeremy Kroeker, and I'm along with Pastor Eric Paul, and we're representing Beth Bible Church here in El Paso. Welcome to the program, and hopefully as you all have been tuning in to KSCE, it's been a blessing to you, and we've had the privilege to be here on United with Christ from November and now into December through these last 2 months of 2016. So first of all, hope you had a great Christmas as we celebrated the birth of our Savior over this last weekend. Hopefully you spent some great time with family and worshiping also with a church family. And now as we are approaching New Year's, it's just a couple days away and we'll be turning the calendar page and moving to 2017.
Yeah, how fast time has gone by, right, this year. I mean, when we were trying to think about 2016, we thought, my goodness, you got all this time and it's gone. They say the older you get, the faster time goes, and I think we can verify for that. And,
I'm experiencing that these days.
Yeah, it looks like you've got a little bit of hoarse throat, Jeremy. You had a lot of Christmas celebrations, but it's been good.
Yeah,
it's been a blessed year. It's been a good year, and we're glad to share. Actually, for the last 2 months, hopefully. Some of the things that we've shared and talked about has been a blessing to you. Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about this acronym BLESS, because what happens now, Christmas is over, New Year is right there, and we start thinking, wow, do I set goals? How do I set goals? I don't like setting goals. I set goals, I don't make it. How is it that we can walk with God and not make it legalistic and tiresome? How is it that what is it that we can do that makes us energized and excited for the things of God? I think those are the questions we need to ask.
Right. And we'll talk about those things
in a
little bit. We'll give some suggestions, I think, for our viewers here as well. But, as we kind of get started on this program, just want to throw out there that if you don't have plans for this coming weekend, we're having a New Year's prayer and worship time on Saturday the 31st at 10 a.m., 10 in the morning. And we're just kind of have a time of worshiping the Lord through music, through interactive prayer, praying individually, praying with the corporate church family. We want to invite you to come out for that. And then on New Year's Day, which is Sunday this year, we're going to have our normally scheduled Sunday worship time at 10:20 a.m. We normally have what we call Next Step classes at 9 a.m. every Sunday, but for Christmas and for New Year's Sundays, we don't have those classes. But we're going to be getting some great options started up on January the 8th as we begin the new year. So on January the 8th, we'd like to invite you, if you don't have a church family, come and worship with us.
Yep.
And come at 9 a.m. We're going to have a free breakfast. We're going to have an opportunity to hear about the different options that we do with the interactive Bible studies during our Next Step class time every Sunday. We'll also be highlighting our Connect groups, which are some churches call them small groups or life groups. We call them Connect groups. It's just a small community that you can get connected with on a regular basis for building relationships, serving together, encouraging each other in the faith. We have those meeting throughout the week, throughout the city during the semesters. So
during our scheduled semesters, we take time off and things like that. Mm-hmm. So and we've intentionally called them Connect groups because the focus really is to connect with one another and with God, with the foundation of the Word being there. Mm-hmm. So it's
Absolutely.
Kind of an important
and
thing.
It's we always say that at Bethel, that there's more to the life of the church than Sunday morning. Sunday morning is a great part of the life of our church, but it's a very small part. And as we've been on United with Christ these last several weeks, we've shared with you different types of ministries and our approach of encouraging people, to really get connected with other believers, take steps towards God, towards one another, and towards the world is how we always phrase it at Bethel. And so we encourage you to do that. And if we can be a resource to you in that way, whether it be through our church or maybe just talking and encouraging you in some way, we just invite you to connect with us. You can visit us online at bethelbible.org. Listen to some of our past sermons, check out some of the things that we have going on, some of the different ministries, or just come and visit us. Stop by the office sometime and come and chat with Pastor Eric or myself or any of our great ministry staff. We just want to be a resource to you, to the city, and we want to see God move in people's lives.
And we're on the radio also,
Right.
1:15 to 1:30. We're on the radio, so if you're driving at that time or want to listen to us at that time, you can listen to. And if you don't catch us, there's all kinds of great messages that go on, both TV and radio. So in El Paso, we are rather blessed to have these wonderful stations
Right.
that work in harmony with one another, such that God is glorified and we are edified and built up. So I think we should take every opportunity to walk with God.
Yeah, it's a great blessing, great ministry, and many great things happening in our city. And, before we kind of talk about our BELLS acronym that we've shared with you the last couple of programs, just want to take a moment, too. We mentioned our New Year's Eve prayer and worship time and our New Year's Day service. This weekend, we are actually encouraging our church family to contribute items that will bless the Salvation Army. We do a thing called Coffee for a Cause at Bethel, and we have Kinley's Coffee House sponsors just great premium
coffee, right?
Premium organic coffee that we serve every Sunday, and we have donation boxes for the coffee, and all the donations that are given, we bless an organization here within our city that's doing things for the good of the city. And so over these last 6 months, we've been sponsoring the Salvation Army. And our desire is not just to send them some money at the end of the time period, some donations, but also to partner with them and get some hands-on opportunities to serve and be a part of what they're doing. And so we've had several opportunities this last semester with the Salvation Army, including doing some bell ringing. We were out doing some
we
bell
were out
ringing.
bell ringing. Pat and I went out for an hour. We had 1 hour time slots. And initially when you're going, you kind of think, man, it's going to, an hour's a long time to be ringing that bell, But it went by so fast.
Yeah.
And of course you were the coordinator, so you came at about 7 o'clock to wrap us up. And Pat, my wife, just loves this time of year, and so we were shouting Merry Christmas to everyone and interacting, and before we knew it, it was done. But really, it's not so much about us and how fast it was. It was this idea to serve the Salvation Army, because this Christmas season that we're going through is the most time when they get all their funds.
Right.
60%.
Yeah, the kettle
so
campaign funds so
big.
much of their ministry.
It's big throughout the year. So it was a blessing to think about another organization that actually serves the poor and the needy in our community. So that is a really good thing to do, is to step out of our comfort zones.
Right, and we've done a couple things with Salvation Army, but on this coming New Year's weekend, we do have their truck that's going to be at our church facility, and we want to fill the truck. We call it a Thrive Drive, and it's basically making donations of clothing, household items, appliances, things that will bless them by being available to them to sell in their Salvation Army store. And again, the store funds so much of what they do, and they provide a great shelter for families, meals at their soup kitchen throughout the year for anyone in need. And so this kettle campaign that we mentioned, the Thrive Drive, and the things that they sell at the Salvation Army store, all of these things fund what they're doing to just help this city and help the community and those in need here in El Paso and the surrounding areas.
Right. So there's one thing to just say, okay, I'm going to write a check, or I'm going to give a little bit of money. It's really, when you roll up your sleeves and you get involved, you start recognizing that, oh my gosh, there are really people in desperate need. Not just for things, but for basic essentials.
Right.
Which is so different than just the things that we want or think we need, but to live life. And when you see that, I think it does something to your heart. It does something to your soul, and you want to get out and start living differently for Christ.
Right, and the thing that's always been challenging to me, Pastor, is when we serve in different ways. Sometimes it's a very short period of time, and so we'll do a service project day, or we'll focus on an organization for a couple of months and do a couple of things with them. But what's challenging to me is realizing this is an ongoing need. And so many ministries and organizations are meeting needs just continually on an ongoing basis, and just so committed to what God has called them to do. And it's a blessing to see that, and it's a challenge, at least for me personally, to think, man, how can we be more committed and involved in what God has called us to do,
Right, and recognizing that they're long-term. In fact, we're reading a book which we haven't quite read in our staff community by Jim Peterson. It's called a long obedience in the same direction. And when I see people serving in the rescue mission and in the Salvation Army, that day after day, week after week, they are being obedient in the same direction, serving people. It gets difficult and tiring over that long period of time. And so for us, sometimes we just go in for a day or a week, but they're there all the time serving our Lord, serving the people. They're loving God well by serving those who are in greatest need.
Right.
And I think that one of the things that I've been pondering as we enter into 2017 and think about life and ministry is how is it that we can be faithful to God over a long period of time, and not just be people that are flitting in and out,
Right.
Which is very helpful, I'm sure, but this long commitment is so valuable.
Right, and ministry and just faith in
Right.
general, our faith
Faith in
walk in general.
right,
I mean, these things are really important. And so, as we are approaching a new year, of course, many people make goals, and many people try to take next steps, if you will. That's kind of a term that we use at Bethel. And so maybe you're thinking about some things as we approach the turn of the calendar year. Maybe some things have come to mind of areas of your life that you'd like to take steps in, or areas of relationship with God that you'd like to strengthen or grow in. And those are great things. We want to encourage you to do that. And an encouragement that we would give you is always look at it with the three aspects of towards God, towards one another, and towards the world. There's times when we might be stronger in one of those three areas, but really all three of them are so important.
They are,
for our faith journey and just for a solid walk.
And when we make those comments, Jeremy, about towards God, towards one another, and towards the world, we also kind of put in kind of to close the loop so that we be fully devoted to Jesus.
Right.
We're not doing movement towards God, one another, the world, so that we will feel good, but really because we want to be fully devoted followers of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And so when we do that, it kind of loops back to the idea that we want to passionately pursue Jesus. And we always have conversation, well, what does it mean and what does it look like? Because different people have different ideas, or people say, well, it is too vague and ambiguous. How do we actually, I like to use land the aircraft on this so that the rubber meets the road. And so that becomes an interesting dialogue and conversation for us.
Right. And so we'll talk a little bit more about some of these goals and setting some of these goals on the second half of our program. But we're going to take a short intermission here and want to encourage you to enjoy this worship music video. And we'll be back to talk about taking next steps and what 2017 might have in store for you. So we'll catch you on the other side of this video. Well, as we continue our program today, again, we want to thank you for tuning in to United with Christ and for your support of KSEE Television and their great ministry here. And again, as Pastor Eric and I, have been on the program here for the last couple of months, it's been a blessing, and we want to encourage you again. If you'd like to find out more about our church, you can visit our website at bethelbible.org. Every Sunday we meet for worship. 10:20 a.m. We're located at 6440 Montana Avenue. We also have Next Step classes Sunday mornings from 9 to 10. Not this Sunday, not on New Year's Day, but on a normal Sunday. We have those classes available for all ages. We have nursery and childcare available. But, the theme of today's program as we approach the New Year is kind of just talking about looking at some next steps that you might want to take over this next year. And again, everybody's got a different opinion, Pastor, about New Year's resolutions or goals or whatever,
Yeah, I'm not one to make a whole lot of resolutions. I try not to. I'm not sure it works in my world. Sometimes I set targets that are too high and too ambitious, and so they kind of go by the wayside awfully quick, and many do that. But there's this whole idea of changing our paradigm so that we live in such a way that it is not burdensome, is the idea. As some know that Pat has lupus, and so we had to change our food paradigm. Every once in a while we get off of it, so we stopped calling it a diet. We just called it a new way of eating. And so when we eat organic foods and we don't do processed foods and processed various things and dairy and all kinds of things that are not good for her, we kind of, instead of looking at it from a legalistic viewpoint, we looked at it as this is encouraging viewpoint, we feel better. And so one of the things that we've been doing is we finished up in December a little mini series called Bells. And my desire in that is that we look at it and not say, well, I'm going to do all these things, because when I'm doing all these things, the focus is on I. What we want to do is we want to be Spirit-led in walking with God so that we can impact a community in such a way that we adorn the gospel of Jesus Christ in such a way that our faith walk looks beautiful.
And in the past program, we've talked a little bit about this acronym BELLS, and so it stands for bless, eat, listen, learn, and then be sent, or live sent is the S. And so each of those is accompanied by a characteristic or a value.
Right.
And as we've talked about that over the last couple of weeks, and as you mentioned, we did a mini sermon series for the first 3 Sundays of December, and you can catch those on our website on our resources page. But let's talk about those for a little bit, because I think they give us some practical ideas for how we can implement actually take steps.
Right, and actually take steps, because one of the big things that happens in us as evangelical believers is that we think that, and rightfully so, that we have to go and share Christ and evangelize the world. Well, but how does it actually look? Because when we unpack more of the New Testament, we see Paul saying not everybody has the gift of evangelism, but we're all called to evangelize. Not everybody has the gift of teaching, but we are all called to appropriately teach. Not everybody is a pastor and things like that, but we are called to minister. So the thought becomes is when we are ready to give an answer to everyone, what we do is we cultivate the soil. We kind of like salt it. We prep the soil. We prep the people, such that if we as believers were truly to live generous, hospitable, Spirit-led, Christ-like, and on mission, that would look so different. Well, what happens is we get involved in programs and routines and have-tos, and we forget that our lifestyle ought to look as being generous, blessing people, ought to look as hospitable, breaking bread is what the early church called it, eating, having people over for meals, going out to eat. When we share food, it kind of breaks down barriers. So we are generous, hospitable, but as believers, who wouldn't want to be Spirit-led and Christ-like?
Right. And we've been talking about this the last couple of Sundays, but what I was encouraged by, and some of the things that you shared, Pastor Eric, was is you didn't put a number to it.
No.
And so you kind of painted this picture as like, hey, let's be a blessing to other people. Let's eat with others. Let's listen to the Lord. Let's learn Jesus. Let's live sent. And it wasn't like, okay, go and bless 5 people and these are the types of things that we often are challenged to do, which there's value to that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
But again, depending on your personality, we're all wired differently. We all respond to things differently. You had mentioned one time when we were talking about this that as soon as you put a number to it, then you're like, nope, not going to do it. I don't want to be told what to do. And there's many people that would
so
connect
many
with
like
that,
right? Yeah.
And so this idea of kind of setting it out there and raising these ideas or these values, but then encouraging people to find what works for you.
And when we talk about this value of listening, is not your devotional time, is what we want to point out. It is don't rob your devotional time for this. This time ought to be a time when you take 15, 20 minutes, and it gets longer as time goes on, just to pause and listen to the voice of God.
Great, and we want to encourage people. The first step that you should take is always to make it a habit of spending time with God on a daily basis, personal time with God. Don't rely on church. Don't rely on listening to messages or being in a Bible study group and doing your homework. Setting aside that daily time to spend with the Lord, just personally, whether that be following a reading plan, reading through the Bible, reading through the New Testament in a year.
And there's so many plans out there.
Yeah, there's great resources
just
out
go
there.
find something.
Yeah, BibleGateway.com has so many resources. I believe even the El Paso Times here in 2017 is going to be putting Bible readings for reading through the New Testament in a year. There's so many resources out there. Right. So make use of those and spend time with the Lord personally. These would be additional times to deepen that relationship.
These would be different times that you learn to kind of quiet yourself and you learn Jesus. One of my pet peeves these days has become that when you talk about Jesus, most of us just know a few highlights of Jesus' life. And the Gospels gives great depth and richness to how Jesus thought and interacted and lived and loved. And what we do is we know about his birth, and we just finished talking about that, and so everybody knows about the birth of Christ and the crucifixion and maybe Sermon on the Mount and maybe the woman at the well, but nothing more than that. And so take a chunk of time to learn Jesus. That was a very missional, very early church statement to let's learn Jesus. And when we learn Jesus, we become Spirit-led. And this idea of being still and know that I'm God.
Right.
And so this is not a formula to bless, eat, listen, and learn. But I think that to do it with some people, and part of this idea of doing it with some people is that don't just do it in the church family. Do it to those who are outside the church family.
Bless someone outside the church.
Bless someone outside
Eat with someone outside the church.
Right. So that you're doing it with either unsaved people or various things. You know, often we make emotional decisions and then rationalize them. And so as believers, we need to start recognizing that some who are opposing Christ, it's just an emotional opposition as opposed to a rational thought, because they really don't know who Jesus is. Sometimes they say, well, I've been brought up in this tradition and I'm not going to change this tradition, regardless of the truth. And so if we live well, I think we can cultivate the soil of their soul so that they will turn and count the cost to walking with our Lord.
Right. And you know, with anything, it just takes starting it, and then you're going to get distracted. You're going to get attacked by the enemy. You talked about two things preventing us from really taking steps is fear and laziness.
Yes.
And you said not laziness as in sitting on the couch, but this idea of being able to figure out ways. It's so easy to be able to figure out ways why not to do certain things or why not to take certain steps. And those are real challenges that each of us deals with in different ways.
Because the enemy kind of speaks and says, well, if you don't take care of yourself, who is?
Right.
And we start thinking, well, I've got to take care of myself first. That is the laziness that we want to talk about. So,
sure.
We're going to be praying for you guys.
Yeah.
We're going to be praying that the soil of El Paso gets tilled so well by Christians who are generous, hospitable, Spirit-led, Christ-like, and living on mission, that when you hear this bell ringing, you go, oh boy, I want to bless, eat, listen, learn, and live sent. That'd be so cool.
And so we want to encourage you to take some of those steps in 2017. And again, as we are kind of winding down our time here on today's program, but also for these period of weeks that we've been on United with Christ, we hope that we've shared some things or encouraged you in a certain way. And again, we've been encouraging you to come, and if you don't have a church family, come and visit us and worship with us on Sundays. Get involved with some of our Connect groups or let some of our ministries that happen during the week be a blessing and a resource to you. And to find out more about all the things that we do at Bethel Bible, you can visit our website at bethelbible.org. Call us anytime at the church office or stop by at 6440 Montana. But as we kind of wrap up this time, Pastor, is just this idea of passionately pursuing Jesus, this idea of meeting you where you are, helping you take next steps. This is a journey that we're on, that we're just committed to and excited about, because we know that God has great things in store for you.
We want to have a long obedience in the same direction, the direction of Jesus.
Yeah, the direction of Jesus, and see what He wants to do in your life as an individual, in the life of our church as a family, in the life of our city, and to see God truly move. And so we want to encourage you, be a part of what God is doing. Be
wherever
generous,
you are.
Be hospitable. Use the gifts that God has given you, and make a difference for Him. For nothing else really matters. And so as we wrap up our time today, we just want to say God bless you. Happy New Year. And again, if we can be a blessing to you in any way, please give us a call at Bethel Bible Church.
The Lord bless.